Hello everybody. I'm just going to wait for people to join before I begin. So hello to you wherever you are on Mother Earth. And I'm just going to wait, okay? Just going to wait for a few people to join. Just spend the moment waiting for people to join. Okay. Hello to you all. So I'll try and speak up because I'm always being accused of speaking too softly. So I will try and speak a bit louder. The purpose of this live is actually support. There will be bits and pieces to do with this timeline that everybody's in, because it all sort of merges into one anyway. Everything's multiple layers, and so, but primarily it's about support. It's about hoping to help you draw yourself back in if you are experiencing a flux within you, if you're reacting to the flux that is outside in the reality. This live is just to try and help you come back here. So there will be some information, some diagrams, and it may go backwards and forwards because that's what happens with me, is I go from one thing to another, but hopefully you'll understand that it's all related to each part, because we're in a multiple experience all the time. All of us are. I just want to draw your attention to the picture, the spider's web. The spider's web. Let's just be with that for a moment. And just absorb it in the sense that it seemingly has structure, seems strong, catches the flies, the insects, doesn't it just? Doesn't it just? So if we take that as an analogy of the outside, wherever you are on your path, take that as the analogy of the outside, what occurs outside of you. It's all collapsing. It seems that the structure is strong, is solid. But in actual fact, it's extremely flimsy. And that's what is happening. That's what's happening to everyone. Is being affected by this all over the world, and they have been since to a greater extent, since March of 2020, because there's a greater design. There's a greater design outside of this structure. It's all here. The greater design is here. It's not in the structure, it's not in the matrix, it's not in the outside of us. The greater design is in everything and everywhere. But that web that matrix, by its own nature, by the design it is actually flimsy. And that's why it's collapsing. Because the only thing that keeps this structure in place, that we experience our lives in, are two things. One is fear, and the other is belief. Once there is the lack of presence of fear within each person, one by one, by one, by one, the system collapses. And all the belief systems that go with that system, whether it is 3D or 4D. I'll say that again, whether it is 3D or 4D. It's built around the fear that humanity each hold, and those fears vary between the individual. And then it's built upon belief systems that are vastly different throughout the planet. So a belief system here in the UK will be different to one in South America, one in Australia, one in New Zealand, India, China, Japan, the United States. It's all these multiple belief systems that people choose to buy into, to believe in. And so what we're witnessing is the collapse of all of that. We're in a period of great flux. Flux is my best way to describe it because I see everything as energy. And so if you imagine, not even imagine, but just to know, you are well aware that we are receiving more and more energy from our sun. The strength, the frequency, the hertz of that energy we're receiving from the sun is increasing and increasing and increasing, and so it carries on. And we are everyone on the planet is absorbing by degree, by capability to absorb various degrees of that higher energetic value that's being emitted by the sun. And all of that energy is designed in the overall design outside of the matrix, excuse me, it's designed to wake people up. And so we had a large awakening last year, but in this timeline, everything that's happening January, February, March, know that it's designed to wake more people up, more beings, more human beings. So there's this great flux because we're also absorbing the energy and integrating the energy. And so for some people it's pretty hard to integrate it, even though they're receiving a lesser degree of energy. It's still hard at that level. It's still hard. And then at a higher level, a highly awakened person, they're receiving more energy. So it's still quite hard for them to integrate the energy amount, hertz, that they're receiving too. So there's this period of great flux within our bodies, and we're seeing the great flux outside. We're seeing the dissolution, the dissolving of the actual structure that we have lived by for thousands of years. And the incoming energy is designed to do that. The overall picture is designed to do it. So the energies, January to 21st of March, will keep increasing in their strength. And just as those energies increase, so everything gets faster and it gets speeded up. So everything happens more quickly, It's dissolving the perceptions within us. It's dissolving the structure that was put in place, that we perceived of, that we believed in. And the difficulty, or the it's like a blindness, and I say that with love and care. But the difficulty and the blindness at the moment within the 4D arena is where they are on their path, they're still buying into the illusion. So I want to try and explain that in easier terms, and then I'm going to go on to ways of helping you each day, because everyone's experience is theirs. There's no one of us having the same experience. That's not the design. And what we can do is we can buy into other people's experiences, but they're not actually ours. So I want to help you in that way take back your power, which will actually help you day by day get through whatever is presenting for you in your reality of great flux, because it doesn't have to be hard. We can have a focus, we can have a different focus if we choose to. We don't have to, and many won't. I was actually shown this timeline a good few years ago, and I was shown the mass confusion, which is kind of why I'm hopping on and doing these sorts of updates. All that really matters is you and your balanced state of mind. What matters is you and your focus, your focal point. What are you focusing on? So I want to go into that later, but for the time being, I'll put this on later. I'll put it on the comment section. I've talked about this tree analogy before, a good few years ago. So we've got this sort of tree, which is a route for the human to experience by. And you could call it the tree of life, you could call it the river of life. These are just my words, but it does explain how we experience, and it explains every single person's path on the planet, no matter their story, no matter their belief system, no matter what they focus on. It still explains it. So I'm just going to go into this really briefly, hopefully. This is the human experience here in the polarized field, and then coming out of the polarized field. So as this tree goes higher and higher and higher, so our consciousness that we embody becomes a greater hertz value. So we're talking about energy value in hertz. And the more we absorb in energy, the higher our consciousness embodied becomes. So the consciousness is what perceives everything. Everyone has their own individual consciousness, and yet there is the whole consciousness. And yet all of that, their individual consciousness and the whole consciousness, is actually one anyway. But the point of this tree analogy is to show you, you can see on one of your sides of the screen, you can see I've put 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, etc., etc. Okay. In truth, there are no dimensions, but it's just a human way of explaining different light planes, different light designs that are in creation for consciousness to traverse. We traverse the light planes, and the easy way of trying to put that into human terms is dimensions, but dimensions don't really exist. Okay, so I'll show you where the 3D reality, and then we awaken from that 3D reality, and this flux that the whole planet has experienced is to awaken more people from the 3D reality. But their route won't be the same as the people that have been awake a long time, or the people that have been awakened up to last year. Their route won't be the same. It will be much faster because the energy coming from the sun is much stronger. It's speeding things up. So they won't have to go through all those different stages the way we did. It will be a different way that they awaken. And a lot of that for the people that are unawakened or newly awakened is energetic. So it will be that codes within them just open up, and they will have an awareness, and then another awareness, and then another awareness. They won't have to go on all the courses and read all the books. It will come from within them. And the reason I say this is because it already is for us, the ones that have been awakened before them. It eventually comes from within. We don't seek out there for the answers. And so for the newly awakened, they will literally unpackage at right timing for each every part that they do need to unpackage for themselves. And then they will meet somebody who has the ability, the energetic ability to pass on energy data. Light is energy, which equals data. So I can meet somebody, I will know in my consciousness to give energy to them without knowing their story, without hearing their story. And I will just literally give energy to them. And that energy will then get unpackaged within them. It's just like a light node going off within them, and then they suddenly know. And that's how the 3D, the people that are unawakened will have a faster track to higher conscious awareness than the people that either have been awake a long, long time or are quite newly awakened. So it's an awakening at that 3D level, and all of this flux worldwide is designed for that. One by one by one. Then I'm pointing now to, then ignore the colours by the way, it's just I've only got so many different marker pens. But if I point to this point of the tree, I just want to say that, you know, within that 3D experience, there's lots of branches of the tree, and that's all experience for the soul. It's chosen experiences. But just as the person awakes into the 4D, they then still are choosing experiences for the soul. So there's no right or wrong experience when you're awakened. Everybody focuses on different subjects, different areas of spirituality, etc. There's nothing wrong with that. If you look at the world and all the different highly awakened spiritual beings, human beings in the world, in all these different vast countries, they all have a different story to tell of how to awaken and what is happening on the earth. So we're all given and we all experience different stories, different storylines. But what matters is your own. And that's the one to give energy to, is the story you give to yourself, not the story somebody else gives to yourself. So in the 3D, and I know I'm kind of going on to all sorts of different tangents here, but on the 3D we would call that religion, different religions. And then when we awaken, we have new stories, or we listen to new stories of spirituality, and we can buy into those. But what matters is your own. What's inside you. So there are many, many paths up the tree. There are many routes, and there's nothing wrong with any of them. They're all designed for Source to experience itself and then come back to itself, remember itself in you. So there's nothing wrong with anybody else's story. It is designed magnetically to take them back, and it may not be the way you go home into your inner awareness of the God self within you. You look at all the different cultures all around the world. They're so vastly different. Is one right and one wrong? No. They all lead home. They're just different stories to get you there. And that's why there's nothing wrong with them. But in the 4D, I want to point to the 2nd of January. There's all these different branches of the tree that the soul chooses to explore. So when somebody's awakened, they may delve into astrology, or they may really get focused on galactic, or they might go down the route of the elementals, and the elementals is their focus. All journeys lead home. So that particular area that somebody or you focus on is something that you're exploring within yourself, actually for God to explore itself more. But eventually, and this is where the bigger picture comes in, the overall design, source design for humanity. Eventually, everybody has to come out of all the different branches of the tree. So whatever branch a person's in, they eventually have to come back to the trunk, because the trunk is the only route to the awareness of the divinity and the God, the essence within you. So we play and we experience in all these different areas. Eventually, we come back to the trunk, and we do it in our own time. There's no force. It happens naturally. You've already designed this. Everything happened already. Everything was created in that one moment. And that is sometimes, again, what people can forget. Go back to the one moment of creation where everything was created in one single moment. What you're experiencing is consciousness, your consciousness facet for you, traversing one of those moments. So you're just traversing it and traversing it and traversing it based on designs, which one of them we can call forgetfulness, polarity. But that's just one. There's loads. So you've already done this, and people always say, you've already done this, but how have you already done it? You've done it already because you already are that consciousness, but you're experiencing consciousness to a lesser hertz based on lots of different lighted designs that's all happening in the same moment, and your consciousness traversing those designs. And one of those moments, one of those designs is called time. And one of those designs is called space. But you're still consciousness. You're beyond the human form. You're consciousness experiencing being with a human vessel, a human body, within these lighted designs. So, on the 2nd of January, the people that were, I call it like a bulk of awakened human beings. So they're awakened, and I've gone through these as that sort of green thing I drew out with lots of different sections to it. At the 2nd of January, they were all in this branch of the tree in 4D, okay? You can see I've done a circle in the branch itself. but since the 2nd of January, they're travelling back down the branch of the tree to the main trunk. So they're still in the branch, but they're coming out of it. They're travelling back down it, which is why you've got lots of different people in the spiritual community still talking about this, that, and the other, because they haven't come back to the main trunk yet. They're on that 5D route. They're on it. And they're coming back down out of the tree branch that they chose to experience by, believe in, think was the only truth. They're coming down, and it takes linear time for that to happen. And so this timeline of the 2nd of January to the 21st of March this year, consider that, especially January. January is a bombardment, okay? But especially January, February, March, a lot of the people in the spiritual community will be traveling back down the branch of the tree trunk. And they'll do it each in their own time within. And when they're back down from the tree trunk, they will then experience a second awakening. And the second awakening is very hard and very beautiful. It's the awakening of the awareness within you and you and you and you that 4D was also illusion. And there we have the dilemma right now, because the people that are traveling back down this branch of the tree are still in illusion of 4D. Right? They've got to dissolve and dissolve and dissolve and dissolve the fears within and the belief systems within. And then what happens is once they're back to the tree trunk itself, that's when they see, oh my God, that was all illusion too. It's quite a hard point of the path to realize that the spiritual arena, the 4D, was also illusion, because you feel completely on your own at that point. When you realize 3D was illusion, which we all did. We all remember that time when you were woken up, however you were woken up. Each was different for all of us. But you realized that was illusion. But there was this 4D spiritual community that you then found or sought, because you become the seeker, the active seeker, which is God seeking itself, basically. But then there comes this point where it's time to leave 4D as well. And so you wake up again. And the way you wake up is by realizing an inner journey. The stark reality is that was also illusion. And it's the journey of letting go of that. And the pain it causes, because you realize how very alone you feel. Who else is there in the world? Who else do you know that is awakened from the 4D arena? Because at this timeline, they are interspersed throughout the world, but relative to the spiritual community and relative to the whole of the human population, there's not that many relative to the whole mass population. But there will be. And there will be, and there will be more and more and more and more. This is the golden age. This is the huge awakening. And the 3 people that are asleep will join, They're already on that train that I keep talking about. But their journey will be different to ours. It'll be quicker, faster, easier in some ways than ours were. And what we've done is actually helped raise the frequency of the overall human consciousness. We've helped Gaia, and so it becomes easier for them. That everything's so perfectly designed. It's so perfect outside of the field of polarity. So there's a 4D awakening to come, but at the moment, people are still caught in this branch of 4D. And their journey, January through to 21st of March, is them gently, gently, gently coming out of it. And I say gently, but it's hard as well, because it's always the Maya, the illusion that that catches your attention. And it's from that inner contemplation, that inner questioning, that inner seeking, that you then expand from it. So in terms of world events, in terms of January through to March, in terms of what you see outside of yourself, and also what you experience individually for you, I want to show you the scales that I've drawn here. I'll just home in. Not a very good drawing, I know, but it's like a set of weighing scales. Okay, and you can see one side I put like lower hertz, which is energy, and then on the other side is positive, it's higher hertz. Higher hertz, I shouldn't say positive, I just mean higher hertz. So that's like, it's a bit like a seesaw, but it's a weighing scales. And what I want to point to there is it's not actually true, that it's an analogy, but it's not true. And it's not true because it's how we perceive our reality, how we perceive outside of us, how we perceive ourselves. So from our visual, our perspective of anything that happens January through to March this year outside of us, it can appear that things are dissolving, that there is this great flux, that there is uncertainty, not knowing, violence, blah, blah, blah. But what is happening is your consciousness is rising out of it. And that's why I say it's not actually correct. I can use it as an analogy. For your consciousness to rise out of 3D and 4D, those fields to experience in have to seemingly dissolve. And so you see the collapse outside of you. And so you experience the collapse inside of you. Is it that those fields are dissolving? No, they're not dissolving. They're already created by Source itself. There are these fields of light and they simply exist. What's happening is you're rising out of them. And so as you rise out of those fields of 3D and 4D, so they become further and further and further away from you. They collapse. So it's a perception. We're experiencing all the time perception upon perception upon perception. Which is why it's kind of so important to have your own perception and not take on another person's. Especially in these next few months, because that's what's happening. You know, that's what is happening in this branch of the tree. People are still buying into other people's perceptions. They're still feeding themselves with the outer reality. They're still giving their energy to the outer reality. So this year's journey, you know, it's a whole journey. It's not instant. I won't talk about the event wave this time, but because that would change a lot of what I'm saying. But this journey this year is step by step, week by week. I'll leave it there, except because I've already gone into what happens through this year on each's journey. I've already said in the last live I did about this year being the year because people are coming out of the 4D, or they will do. It's when we come out of it, that journey out of it it's always these multiple experiences that happen. So we can experience pain, yeah, but as we come out of it, we're also in a greater awareness. And so the journey this year is for people to actually feel physically, receive the inner data, not the outer data, the inner data of what this feeling is, what this energy is. And eventually, step by step, they come to the understanding and the acknowledgement within them, the acceptance within them, that they're actually experiencing the energy of Source. And that's why I keep pointing to the fact, and I have done all of last year, that this year is the year that people will start to speak more and more about Source itself, about the divinity within them, about what I call essence, which is an aliveness. It's a living energy that is not seen in 3D. It's not seen in 4D. We can see energy in 4D, sure, of course we can, but we don't see the higher energetic, because we're not ready to. And that higher energetic is the God Source energy itself. And that's what people are going to be experiencing one by one through the course of the year. And it just never ends, basically. So I'm going to move on now to some support, because the light's going here. In fact, I'll just put a light on. Okay. Okay, so thank you for that. Let's come back to now. That's just information. We'll just let that go now. And come back to this timeline, January. Bearing in mind that the energies from the sun are stronger and will keep increasing. How we experience, how we understand speeds up for everybody, and that can be difficult at times. Let's bear in mind that that also relates to what happens in the world, what is outside of us, what we focus on outside of us. So for some people that will be world events. For others, they don't focus on world events. Whether they're awakened or unawakened, some people don't focus on world events. And so they too have to experience a vast expansion within them as well. And so each individual is in their own design made of light, that creates their own expansion. And it gets the attention by events for them. And so those events can be world events, they can be to do with your circumstances, your jobs, your family, your partnerships. It's all different, it's all individual. And no matter how hard it may seem for each one, it's ultimately designed to expand you, expand everyone. So bearing in mind, we are in a period of fast mass change. Bearing in mind, the desire for each one is actually to expand, because each person has that divinity, that God spark within them. They always did. It's about being aware of what you give your energy to. In this timeline, in January, in February, in March, up to the 21st of March. If I had one piece of advice to just write down and just look at every half an hour even, this tiny little note for yourself, it would be, what am I focusing on? Because what you focus on, you're giving your energy to. You're feeding. What you focus on, you're sustaining in your reality. So therefore, you're creating more of it. Everybody, there's different levels of awareness of creating, okay, that we embody. And there's also limitations within creations depending on how much you've embodied. But as you rise, you become a more conscious creator and more responsible for your creations. And so it is a time to be aware of what is your truth and what is somebody else's. Are you feeding into somebody else's perception, somebody else's story, somebody else's belief system? Because if we go back to that spider's web, remember how it's created. How is it sustained? It's sustained by a mass amount of people feeding in to belief systems. And once the masses stop feeding into those belief systems, that reality collapses. Because the structure is completely flimsy. It's very weak. It relies on fear and belief, and that's it. And unfortunately, it's been the game, that's how it's worked for thousands of years, is that people have bought into other people's belief systems instead of looking at this belief system inside of themselves and allowing that to expand them. Instead, they've looked outside of themselves and bought into this and this. I believe this, I believe that. I don't believe this over there. That's rubbish. This isn't good. This is bad. This is what's right. That's what's wrong. That's all within the polarity field. And so if we go to the 3D and the 4D, it's all polarity. This picture where I say in the black writing, the 3D and the 4D are polarity. They're still polarized. 4D is still within the polarized field light design. And so all that happens in 4D is you change your belief systems to something else until you awaken out of 4D. And so it goes on and on and on and on until you become, I call it God consciousness. It's just my term. It goes higher and higher and higher in these higher truths, higher truths, higher truths, higher truths, until you become God conscious of the fact that there is no truth and there is actually no meaning. There just is. And so there is the experience. There is the perception. And how we create our worlds is by our perception and our belief systems. So to be aware in these January, February, March months, what are you feeding? What are you giving energy to? And I mean everything. Are you giving energy to a storyline that does not exist in your reality, but that you've heard or you've read? Are you giving energy to a person in your family that believes this, that, and the other? Are you feeding their belief systems? Because what you focus on, you feed. Everything is energy. Everything. But how your reality is created, that's where there is the blindness. Because still within the field of polarity in the 4D, as we take on different types of belief systems that we then believe in, we're still within a polarity of this is good and this is bad. It's just a newer belief system, a different belief system, but this is still good and this is still bad. Something that gets forgotten. And that there's no right or wrong with the forgetting. But there's, something that does get forgotten is that it's just newer belief systems. We will never change the lighted design of 3D. We will never change the lighted design, because it's a design of light that consciousness traverses. Okay? A field of light is very intricate that your consciousness traverses. We will never change the field. That's God's creation. We will never change 4D. What we each do is we rise out of it. We rise out of it. That's the whole design, to rise out of it. To not stay in 3D and change it. Because the light design is what it is. The fields and the way they're created, they are what they are. It will always be polarity in 3D. It will always be polarity in 4D. So we don't change those fields. We rise out of them and create from a higher perception, each and every one of us. That's how we create the new, by rising out of the old. But if we're paying attention, if we're focusing on the old, we're just sustaining it. We're just keeping it running. We're fueling it by our attention, by our focus to it. The greatest thing, and I didn't understand this when I was newly awakened, but I do now, I totally get it because it's the only common sense to me, but it's just my perception. I'm not asking you to take it on at all. The greatest thing any one of us can do, if we want to help, if we want to create a better world for everyone, for your children, for your brothers and sisters, for the animals, for Gaia, for the trees, for all kingdoms, the greatest thing any one of us can do is raise our frequency and create new from a higher perception, a higher consciousness, a higher knowing. Unity. We will never create unity in 4D because it's a polarized field. And I don't understand why people can't see that. But polarized. Good and bad. Right and wrong. Light and dark. Etc. Hot and cold. Polarized. It's polarized. We can't change the field. So that's why, you know, people always say, oh, you learn from history, but you don't learn from history if you stay in 3D. You just create more polarization. We don't learn from history in 4D. We just create more polarization because that's the field that governs it. In other words, fighting is polarized. War is polarized. War, peace, right, wrong. Outside of that field, they don't exist. There is no fighting. It's outside of the field of polarity, and that's exactly where a number of people all over the planet, they got outside of the field of polarity last year, and they're here. They know the harmony, they know the peace. They're not feeding the illusion, they're not feeding the events outside in the world, because they'd have the wisdom not to. They're not going to sustain those dimensions if they've risen out of them. They're not going to feed war. They're not going to feed opposition. They're not going to feed fear. They're not going to feed truths that they know aren't any longer valid. We don't change the world by immersing in what is outside of us. We change the world from inside of us by raising our frequency. And, you know, I know there's these phrases out there that say, they say things like, be the change you wish to see in the world. And then, you know, there's another phrase that's, be the example to others. Be the example to them. And they're beautiful, beautiful phrases, but I have my own phrase rather than that. And it works for me, and it has done. And that phrase is for me to be the greatest example to myself. So in other words, within this world, so within your own world, your own being, when you are the greatest example to your own self within your thoughts, you automatically become a good example to others by your words and by your actions. But it has to start with being that example to yourself, to not deny that. There's no point in saying I am love if you know, deep down inside you hate that person. You know, you're just fooling you're just fooling yourself. There's no point in talking the talk if you're not it inside you. So the way out of that is to, I find, I just explain in my personal journey, but the way is to actually be the highest example to you, to your inner being, to your thoughts that arise. Be the loving thoughts within you, and then that will automatically go out to everyone else, and in your words, in how you act, in your actions as well. There's something I also want to say before I close, but I will bring it back to the present moment to just help people, because there's a lot of talk here, I know. It's something I really want to, what's the word? I'm struggling for words today, but really send home a message. Just to help you now. So you've got that little note that says, to remind you, what am I focusing on? What am I giving energy to? Is it mine? Is this a belief system I actually allowed to unfold within me, or is this somebody else's belief system over there that I'm choosing to buy into and give energy to? disempower yourself by. So apart from that advice to keep refocusing on what is your focal point, what are you making your focal point? Because that's what you're sustaining, that's what you're bringing into your energetic field. That's how your reality is being created for you, by you, by you. That's one thing. The other thing, which is a very stark truth, just to get the message home, you know, in these times of flux. Because if you get this, if you really let it penetrate inside you in your quiet moments, it's huge. It really is a beautiful truth that will expand you and expand you and expand you if you choose. And that message, that truth is, everything you say, you're saying to God. So every single thing you say to another person, you're literally saying to God itself. That's what people can't see in the world, in the violence, in the mayhem, in the lashing out, in all of these different ways. They're in forgetfulness of what they're talking to until they aren't. And when you aren't in forgetfulness, it changes everything and will change the world. Everything you say, you're saying to God. And I want to go further. Everything you think, every single thought that arises in your head quietly, secretly, you're talking to God. So how do you wish to treat yourself? You're just waiting for you. That's it. That's all anyone is waiting for, is themselves to realize. And then literally everything can change. But we're in this process together of it changing gradually, because it's just too much. It's too much for the human in that program, in that web, to cope with. That's why it happens a step at a time. But everything you say to another, you're saying to God. Everything you're thinking inside of you quietly, privately, you're talking to God. Everything we do is an act of the remembrance of God, or the forgetfulness of God. What do you truly wish to create? Do you wish to keep feeding the system? It happens by you. Your awakening happens within you. It's not about waiting for some miracle to happen outside. You are the miracle. You are. You're the miracle. So many just don't know it. But they will. They will. One by one by one. So just to bring you back, let's just come back to right now. And all the flux that's happening outside of us, in world events, in family events, in life circumstances, your life circumstances, your emotions, your fears, your worries, your pain of what's just happened to you in your life. Or perhaps you're holding on to pain from something that happened to you many years ago. And how about the fears of the future? All the worry, all the concern, all the not knowing. Let's just be together now and find your inner power, your inner energy. It's not an ego power. When I say power, it's never about ego. It's about energy, your energetic expansion. Let's just be here right now and let's bring it back. Okay? So if you just wanted information, you might want to switch off now. But if you just want to experience a part of you that's waiting to be experienced, that holds such an energy and such a presence, then just be with me now for a moment and we'll do this quietly. And so just to breathe a breath into your heart. That heart is the gateway. It's not a phrase, it's a truth. So just breathe a nice natural breath into your heart. And when you breathe it out, breathe the out breath to the whole of your body. Feel it as energy. It is energy. It's energy. So breathe the out breath to the whole of your body and just do it naturally, no force. Just your way. And return to that breath again and again and again. The more you do that, the more you connect to the breath of the heart, not the lungs. You connect to this gateway, this portal that is your heart. And it will always keep expanding. It's not an exercise to learn and master. It will always expand. It is your expansion through each one's heart space. So just as we breathe, to just be in this moment, right here, right now. Just breathe and be here. And if you're having thoughts of your day or what happened yesterday or worries of what will happen tomorrow, just come back to your center point, your heart, and breathe in this moment. This moment is the only moment you exist in. You don't exist in the past. You don't even exist in the future. Because in truth, there's no time. Your consciousness resides outside of the idea of time. Time is just an experience. Your consciousness does not exist within the field of time. And so for your consciousness, the true you, your consciousness, not mine, but yours, there is no past, there is no future, there is just now. So just be here right now. Be present to you, just breathing. There is nothing to search for in this moment. There is nothing to know. When we let go of wanting to know anything, we let go of the mind's desire to know something. And the moment we let go of that, not knowing, wanting to know, and just be here, just be present in the simplicity of your heart and your breath. There is everything. Everything exists. So I'm just going to be quiet for a few seconds as you allow yourself to not know anything in this moment. There's no searching. There is no past. There is no future. It is just being present. And I want you to try now just to let go, be present, and in that silence, in that simplicity, you will feel all of existence. In nothing, there is everything. And so you can make that moment last as long as you like. But just by returning to the present moment, dropping all those needs, just be present, you're going to find everything you need to know in that moment is there. It's how 5D works. It's how that field of light works. It works in the present moment. It doesn't work in the past. There's nothing to look back on now. There's nothing to hold on to now. And there's nothing to grasp now. There's just the expansion of you that is occurring regardless of your resistance to it or not. At the very least, Just doing that breath. Just dropping the past, the future, and just being here right now when you do this on your own. And let go of your thoughts and just be in this moment, this very moment that you'll have tomorrow or the next day. At the very least, you will return to balance. You will feel calm. That's where your power lies. It doesn't lie in the past. It doesn't lie in searching for future. Your divine power lies in the present moment of you, every single time. In every single moment you choose to be right here, present. And what each and every one will expand into as we go is more of the present, because that is the lighted design of 5D. And in that present, balanced moment is where the answers that you need in that moment are found. The sights that your consciousness wishes you to see are seen. There's no searching. Your consciousness is in command of your vessel. And all you have to do is allow it. Give into it. Be present. It's in that present moment we will all live, where every single thing that we need is available in that moment. And we get to consciously know that. We get to consciously live that way because we learn how it works. And that's the big learning curve of letting go of the control, which in truth is just letting go of the way 3D was perceived and how 4D was also perceived. It doesn't work that way in 5D. So know your power, know your strength, know your energy. If you ever feel imbalanced, if you ever spiral out, or go off on one, as we say in England, and lose control, if you ever feel upset, in turmoil, anxiety is another big one with these energies. Physical anxiety is this breath in the heart, not the lungs. And give yourself that moment to be present. Don't you deserve it? Aren't you worth it? Of course you are. Of course you are. And by coming back into that balance, by giving yourself those few moments at any time of the day, doesn't matter where you are. You can be with people and do it, doesn't matter. But by giving yourself that, you'll come into balance, and then any decisions you have to make or any ways of looking at things that have arisen for you, you do so in a very balanced perspective. You do so in a space of neutrality, in heart-centeredness. We don't need to know everything. Nobody does, and nobody ever will. A lot of the things we think we want to know, we don't need to know. And our consciousness already knows that we do not need to know. So be at peace. Find your peace in not knowing. if you can't stand not knowing things, work on that. Because it will bring you so much freedom. Be in peace at not knowing. Because for even to think that we know is an illusion. It's an illusion. If anybody says they know, then that's okay for them. But it's not the higher truth. We're always, each and every one of us, in a state of not knowing until we know. And we only know in the present moment. If we think we know for the future, if we think we know for the past, we're just in illusion. In this idea, this intellectual, egoic idea that we think we know. There's only now. There's only now, and the knowing that is given to you and you and you and you in your moment of now, in your present moment. And that is your internal guidance system of your divine, pure consciousness. So I'll leave it there. I have no idea if any of that's helped. There you go. I'm in not knowing. Do I mind? No, I don't mind. I'm just trying to make the effort to just help people, because I know it's can be challenging if we feed the illusion, if we feed our mind, if we allow our mind to spiral. It can be quite challenging, but there is an answer, and that answer is within you. It's so simple as well. It's so simple. Just be present. Just breathe. Connect to your heart. Your heart is the gateway. It's the gateway for everybody. Everyone. It's the way. It's the only way. Okay. If that helps, I'm so grateful. Even if it just helps one person, then that's my job done for the day. And please just take what resonates. Let it go if it doesn't. I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm just sharing support as I go, in the hope it helps, because we're in this all together, because we are all already one. So God bless you. Take care. And remember to breathe. Okay. Lots of love. I love you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.